Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Owen talks about sports and movies. Thank you for watching today's video. I always appreciate the support. Let's get into it. So today we are going to break down Black Widow. It just came out on July 9th, last Friday, and so this can be a review. I thought it was a solid MCU return to the big screen. We got a special guest. I'll get that reveal later. With all that being said, make sure you leave your thoughts on this movie down below. Like, comment, subscribe so you never miss out on any fun. With all that being said, we're going to get into the actual breakdown. But this is a spoiler alert. We will be going into full spoilers. There'll be this is not a non-spoiler review. This is a full-on spoiler review. So if you don't want to have it spoiled, put it on your watch later. Come back. I'd appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got Truett back on today. We're actually live from New Mexico.
Yeah.
I went and visited my boy since he decided he wasn't going to stay in Lubbock over the summer. Loser. So Truett, you give your overall thoughts on the movie first.
I really liked it. I really liked the setup and where they were going with it. I thought there was a couple of things they could have done differently, but I appreciate it. It was good to get back into some Marvel in the movies.
Yeah, that's basically my sentiment too. Just some cons that we're gonna go over first. I really thought Taskmaster. My biggest gripe with this movie is that Taskmaster was just an absolute waste. I thought Taskmaster should have been in it more, and then the final scene between her and Natasha should have been a lot, at least a little longer, but definitely a lot longer. So I just felt like that was like the biggest thing that was wrong with the movie. I've heard a lot of people gripe about the identity reveal. It doesn't really matter to me, so that's not really an issue. My issue is just that Taskmaster was not in the movie enough. I know you had a lot of problems with the third act, so I'll let you. You deal with it.
I mean, at a certain point in these movies, like we can see, like I don't know how to explain it, but like we've seen plenty of scale in terms of like, explosions and sky bases and crazy stuff like that. And I guess I was hoping for a little bit more of the story of like, and it just ended up really focused on this giant sky bases falling and I don't know, felt like kind of a cop out, but
yeah,
especially considering the story that they set up. But I don't know.
Yeah, and that next bullet point is a slightly rushed story. We talked about this. I thought the beginning was good, like the first act was good. The middle was really, really good. And then the ending, they didn't quite have the correct landing. It was more of a crash landing, which is very fitting with how the movie actually ended. But that was just, I don't know. The last like third of the movie is just basically once they decide they're going to go to the sky base, that's where the Red Room actually is. That's when the movie kind of starts going downhill a little bit. That's typical of movies, unfortunately, is that, the third act is normally not as good as the rest of the movie, but it's not the worst third act I've ever seen. So it's definitely just a little rush. Another big thing is this didn't feel like Black Widow's last outing in the MCU. This did not feel like the last time I should have seen Natasha.
Even though it is.
In the MCU,
not chronologically. But.
Yeah, I think this complaint is gonna age out because as people get into it and watch it chronologically, like it's gonna be fine. But like, just in my mind, and anyone who's been a fan at this point, just watching this movie after Natasha's already died, like already down the timeline, I don't know. It just feels weird, and then sometimes it gets a little outlandish at times, mainly during the third act and some of the action sequences. Like. Natasha and Taskmaster are fighting as they're like falling down the sky and they like deploy the parachute like 20 feet from the ground and they just like eat and they just like eat the crash landing when they literally deployed their parachute and it wasn't even all the way out like 20 feet above the ground and they just ate it and they got back up and fighting.
And they're like ready to
which
go.
is like which would be normal which would be cool for like someone else, but like for Black Widow, like that's definitely not.
She's not a super soldier.
I mean, Yelena was making fun of her because she's like, at least Thor, or at least the space god doesn't have to take an aspirin after a fight. Like it's just that was just a little outlandish. So those were just some of our like complaints, but there was a lot of good in this movie that we're going to get into now. The number one thing, actually, we're going to talk about first, even though it's not the first bullet, is Yelena. We both agree that she's easily the best character in this movie. Very dry, very funny. Her dry humor was fantastic, which is a bullet point down here that says funnier than I expected, which is I should have corrected that. But very vulnerable emotionally, but not weak at all. Definitely not. She was super, super, super good. Definitely the best character in this movie. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
definitely. I thought the family dynamic was good. it was not as strong as I thought it was going to be, but it's just like
I think they set it up to be.
Yeah,
it just didn't pan out.
And then
they didn't really drag it home.
It was like super good, like up until like the third act, which once again we've been hammering that that's where it gets messy and just like so they don't really like land it as well as they could have, but leading up to that, it was really, really super good. And the reveal that this is like at one point this was Natasha and Yelena thought this was their real mom and dad, and like their real family, stuff like that, and then dealing kind of with like the them finding out that it's not and everything like that was very emotional. It's nice to see Nat as the main character. Now, granted, this movie should have a movie with Nat as the main character should have came out like so long ago. I always say that I look at the slate of when these movies came out and I think, I feel like this movie probably should have been in the Captain Marvel slot. Not hating on Captain Marvel, but just from a like storytelling standpoint, I feel like that would have pushed the momentum for Endgame even farther than Captain Marvel did.
And it would have made the Endgame moment
Natasha's death in Endgame more
like painful to watch.
And impactful, yes. And then we would have had like, I don't know, it just felt like this movie's just weird. We're going back in time before, like going back in time is fine, like prequels and stuff like that. But going back in time with a character that's already died feels kind of weird in my opinion. But regardless, it's nice to see Nat as the main character in her own solo film. That was super nice. The action was really, really, really good. Even in the more outlandish parts, it was still really good. Nat was a beast in this movie. I mean, she really was beating up on everybody. It was super good to see her. It's always fun to watch like these super trained soldiers just beat up on like regular people. The prison break where Nat like beats up everyone on the bridge was really good and really fun. I liked her white suit a lot. It was way funnier than I expected. Yelena provided most of that humor, but everyone else had like everyone had quippy lines and stuff like that. So I thought that was super good. Did a great job filling in Nat's backstory and what happened in Budapest. I think that's outside of Yelena, that's the best thing that this movie did. Budapest, yes. Just like finding out how Nat got to the Red Room. I mean, in the movie, when they're taking Yelena and Nat to the Red Room, like the first time, Nat's like, she's too young, and Red Guardian's like, you were younger. So that means that Nat was at the most 5 years old when she got to the Red Room. And that's really sad to think about. And, her time in the Red Room and what she did and the exact details of her defecting from the USSR to S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought that was all very interesting. And just basically explaining what happened in Budapest, because Budapest, as Black Widow corrects multiple times. Just filling in that, like, that was her last thing to do to defect to S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought that was really good. Is there anything else you want to add on anything I said? Or
I don't know. Yeah. Sounds about right.
And the last thing that we're going to talk about is Black Widow tackled a very mature and new theme that I definitely don't think we've seen in any superhero movie, just about human trafficking. That's a very serious issue worldwide. And me and Drew have talked about this, how Marvel's really been stepping up their themes that they've been talking about lately. Falcon Winter Soldier, they dealt with racism in America. And then but in this movie, they deal with human trafficking and like the impacts of that and like just a bunch of stuff like that. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and you could also say WandaVision and Loki, I think, tackle some like mental health type things.
Yeah, and like about trauma and stuff.
Yeah. which are really interesting to see. I don't know. I really think Marvel's added a lot of complexity to their villains and like protagonists just in storytelling. I don't know. I really appreciate where they're going.
Yeah, I agree. So that being said, overall, it was a solid enough return to the big screen for the MCU's. Great action, not as great landing, a little bit of a crash landing. Yelena was fantastic. That was great. Tackled a very serious issue very well. Definitely entertaining and a good watch for all MCU fans. And once again, I've covered up the rating, but I gave it an 8 out of 10. What would you give it?
Huh? I think 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. We definitely both recommend it. Everyone go see this, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for checking it out. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the link content to it. Thanks for coming back on today. I missed you, buddy. And